Thank you, Tomer. I think I'll begin to introduce this session as we plan, and my 12 minutes will be dedicated to present arts at CERN. So let me get my presentation and to share my screen. And because the goal of this brief introduction is for you to know what we do in the laboratory in Geneva, and how the interactions between artists and scientists happen. So please let me know if you are seeing my screen. Yeah, thank you. And I'll play from the start. So there are many ways to talk about what we do, because it's an methodology in expansion, and we have the luxury to be able to experiment and to see what works, what doesn't work, what fails, and what can be improved and enhanced through the experience and the diverse scenario that we are located in within. And so for those who don't know, CERN is the European Laboratory of Particle Physics, is located 20 minutes from Geneva. It's in the Swiss countryside, and a big chunk of CERN is also in France. And there is 12 scientists and engineers, as well as staff working in CERN. It's the largest laboratory in the world, and there are as many as 60 experiments, and probably more in the new year or less, because there is rapid prototyping, I would call it. There is, since 1954, there are many new ideas, models, and experiments, tools, methodologies, people from all over the world coming and permanently or in transition through the lab to share and to work on collaborations that create these beautiful machines. And I'm very fortunate to be there as an art curator and to be running this project since 2015. So I like to choose and to show pictures that are not very common. You usually don't see these machines, this beautiful sculpture that is meant to do something. It's an object with a purpose, and was created to in the early times of the lab to work and experiment on particle detection. So I use also the quote of our father, Max Planck, who says that the pioneer scientist must have an artistically creative imagination, and I have to agree with this. And I also want to, instead of being very factual about what we do, I want to show you as well the artistic background and the history, the early history of the artist in the lab. So in the Saint-Courier, which is the journal for high energy physics, it still exists today. In the 1972, we have an artist in the cover, James Lee Byers, and when I found this in the archives of CERN, I was really pleased and surprised that artists like him, connected to fluxus and to performative and conceptual art, were already very curious of what was going on in Geneva, in these places where crazy and mad scientists were creating these new experiments for connecting with the subatomic wall and the most hidden phenomena in nature. So he is there. And if you check the bottom page, there is something that says, one of the visitors who brought some color into the CERN corridors during the summer. He's photographed here on the ISR site with the experiment hall L1 and water tower in the background. So this is the CERN jargon that many of us know where the water tower is. But I hope that with these images I'm providing you some, I'm inviting you virtually to some of the places that are very characteristic of the lab. Later in the 2005, a very well-known performance happened in the tunnel of the Large Hadron Collider. Gianni Motti, an artist from Geneva, walked through the tunnel that at that time was empty, still empty. The Large Hadron Collider was being built, looking for the anti-Motti. So he took the metaphor of the antimatter and he tried to slow down his pace to while walking through one of the places that would host in the following years the fastest, the most speedy phenomena that we know of nature, the particle collisions. And what we are today, after 2011, we are the official arts program of the lab. Was created in a moment of great enthusiasm. There was a discovery coming. The Higgs boson was about to be announced, and the data was bringing great hopes around this time. So in 2011, there was this realization that creativity was a core pillar of the lab. And the director general at that time, Rolf Hoyer, supported the proposal to bring together something that was an obvious demand from the artist and something that could bring really interesting conversations into the lab with the scientists and the engineers and the staff. So Arts at CERN was brought to life as to foster the dialogue between art and particle physics and in the broader sense. So our visions, our goals were to foster significant exchanges between art and physics, to create platforms for engagement with creative communities, with artists, from the lab to outside, inviting them into the lab, and to participate of an international cultural community eager to connect with CERN. So the framework, how we do this, the framework of the programs are today 3 strands, 3 schemes where that, as I said before, we began with slowly and taking consideration that this was new and there was a methodology and some formats to and structure of our programs to create. And today we have residencies, we have art commissions, and lately we have very successful touring exhibitions. But still, what is our focus? Our focus is research and to create meaningful engagements between art and science. And I say meaningful and trying to say significant. And how we describe this, I don't really know. There is not a formula. We create and we like to think that we are creating an environment for trust, for caring, for a place and some dynamics that allow conversations and to trigger results, to trigger some chemistry that we cannot predict. Because what is physics? Physics is, as one of our friends scientists said, physics is about responding to everything. We want to know everything. So I think art is that as well. So we want to know everything and we create the tools for doing this. So if we face this big challenge as curators in the European Laboratory of Particle Physics, we need to give the chance to anything happen. And how we do this? By inviting artists to propose ideas through open calls that we announce every year. And through these proposals, we, in the selection boards, we try to guess with experience, of course, and some competences that come with our profession, what is feasible in this proposal, what is exciting, and how further we can push the preconceptions about art and science, how we go further. So we do this through the Collide residencies, the Accelerate residencies. These are formats. Some of them are shorter, some of them are longer. Guest art is very short, but it's a way to contact with the lab. So all these artists come to these places, and you see that there is a big diversity. We see the Click experiment is a linear accelerator that has been tested and invented and designed by scientists from all over the world, and is there in CERN. We have a theoretical corridor. This is where Diego and Wen-Chi met, probably for first time. And the theoretical corridor is a place full of ideas. It's really ideas that are become tangible in blackboards, as you see here, Diego and semiconductor chatting in this place where ideas flow.
Dani, not Diego.
Dani, sorry. Dani Figueroa, who is now in Valencia. And places like this one, there is a lot of civil engineering in CERN as well. So Nicole and Lullier and Alan Bogana are in the High Lumi excavation hall, and they are just having fun because it's a very extraordinary place. So these artists come to CERN to spend time with us, and to bring questions, and also to provide some dynamics, some dynamism, some conversations that you often don't have in other places. In 2011, this is the progression that we have. We had artistic residencies. In 2016, we started to support art commissions, and in 2019 until now and into the future, we have exhibitions. So we have these three things. It's very challenging, but we are managing so far with great collaborators. So there are commissions. Where are they? We don't have an exhibition space, an art space. We have exhibitions, but we don't have art exhibition spaces. So we collaborate with institutions all over the world, and some artists bring their commissions to places like Centre Pompidou, like Juliette Aranda, or Halo in Art Basel, an exhibition I curated with semiconductor and supported by Audemars Piguet. This exhibition, also semiconductor, is now in Tallinn in Estonia. Juntur Kim, and Quantica in Barcelona. Quantica in Barcelona was very successful, was about quantum mechanics, one of the two big discoveries in physics in the 20th century with general relativity, and it welcomed as many as 80,000 visitors. So that was the third most visited exhibition in CCCB in the history of the museum. So there is something about physics that is important, relevant today, and we are trying to provide this to the artists, to the exhibition spaces, the cultural institutions, and to the audience lately. So we were successful in the press as well, Financial Times. We are very proud of this. and we have big expectations as well. There will be, and has been announced already, the Science Gateway, a new space to welcome visitors at CERN. So there will be an art-led exhibition space in 2022 if everything goes well. And so the exhibitions will come back to us. And my hope is that new dialogues and exchanges between these moments, these exhibitions, these artworks, and the scientific community will happen and trigger new things. So thank you very much. This has been a very brief introduction, but I'll be happy to respond to any other question later in the Q&A.
Okay, so I will share my screen. Okay, you see the slide?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, hello, I'm Wen-Chi from Taiwan, and thank you so much for the invitation. Such a pleasure to share the work that's with CERN and also Diego. And so I kind of like will go chronologically, like how I arrived in CERN and I met Diego, and then after how this meeting evolved into a actual work in the studio. So it's in 2016 that it was this project called Accelerate Taiwan. And it's in Taiwan, it's a national call for new media artists and also the choreographer to apply to participate. And I remember at that time that many of our friends discussing about this project and then how to apply. But you know, like when we check on the website of CERN, it's like it's another world. So many of the friends reject me to pair up. And then anyway, I'm very lucky. And so I pair up with Pei Ying, who is also on the third session of this conference. And then we pair up and then we apply. And luckily we get in. And somehow during, it's a 6 weeks of residence. And so we got opportunity to visit CERN, like into their research centers, and a lot of meeting with scientists. And for me, it's a bit like have a really like a big tour of CERN, and then the scientists would do a touring for us and explaining their questions, research. And then I got a very broad idea of what quantum physics is or particle physics is. But honestly, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of concepts, and some question is really huge to imagine. And there's a lot of experiments that was very, very new for me. So this picture shows that I realized there's a experimental physicist and also theoretical physicist. And then I met Diego during this time. And then he was, I know that his focus is on gravity. So he explained me some of his research and also his questions. And at that time, Peng was collecting the sound of the equation. So we kind of filming Diego for his, when he worked with the blackboard. And then I realized that, of course, because I'm still getting familiar with the language of his language in physics. And most of the time, I'm actually trying to find what's the motion of the movement or the movement of the scientist. So I end up, Diego was a very gestural person. So I focused a lot of his gestures. And I just saw your performance on gesture in your festival, and I actually very interested. It's my pocket project to study the gesture of scientists. So, and this is how I continue trying to observe most of the time, not ready yet to dance with it, because I feel like I was blocked with a lot of big questions and just trying to figure out what they are. And this is the cloud chamber. And I remember first time I saw it, and it's kind of very inspiring for me. And because the scientist talks a lot about particles, and somehow I didn't really see them. Like I saw lots of programming, a lot of experiments, and a lot of data analyzing or archive, and a lot of images as well. But this is the first like a moving motion, like motion for me, like how particle moves, or how something that's they are constantly describing invisible world. And then it's kind of my first time realizing what they are trying to find. And then after the first meeting, I'm very interested to know more about gravity, because dancer, choreographer, we work a lot on the word gravity, but for us, it's more relative to how our body is connected to the floor. So while you are kind of like because we can't change that, whatever you move, you will be attached to the floor and you will fall back to the floor. And so we have another 2 meetings, and Diego was really generous and started to introduce me a lot of ideas of how to translate into the actual space. And also I asked him about, because they talked about scales of thinking. And so with this quantum scale, between the quantum scale or into the very, on the other end, there's this universe. And then I just trying to understand what gravity means to him and how I can present it, for example, with something I can listen or I can see, and what that relative to if there's a dancer on stage. So this is the first drawing we draw together, and we call it the dance of gravity. So basically he was explaining me if how to paraphrase the gravity into, for example, the colors, or how it translates into the frequency of the sound. And also we talked about a lot about gravitational center. So if it's dancer means if dancer is the center, what does that mean to his or her relation to the light or the sound frequencies. So basically we are analyzing in his point of view. And at the same time, I exchange my point of view, how I see the center or the, I would say what's the center for dancer when we move. And I relate, rather I relate the center to the word core. And so there's few concepts, I call it my physical principles. So that's a body is, there's a center under the belly button, and then there's the energy through from the core to the limbs is with the spiral motions. And also there's some choreographer talk about kinesphere, and it's about your relationship, how the center work with the outer space. And so also this center can move away from your body. So it becomes an imaginary center away from your core. So we exchange this, let's say like definition in his language and my language. And I remember the key word was quite important for me, is that he said it's a relative. So dancer, the position of the dancer, the frequencies of light, the frequencies of sounds, it's all relative when you move. So after 2016, then I kind of resting those ideas in my head. And then I continue to do performance work in theater, also in galleries. And somehow I realized like profoundly, the concept of what CERN is study is really fundamentally changed my understanding in time and space. So of course, like related to my work, I try to work with some subjects and also have some scientific context behind the work. And I find like very interestingly is like I start to it started to change the way I see dance or the space I work with. And then very luckily, this project rests for 4 years. And because for me, it was still challenging to go into the studio with scientists, I would say, because I'm trying to find the gateway or the language. And also as our drawing on the gravity, immediately for me is that I have to, it translates in my language is that I realize that I need an interactive space. Like I need to set up an interactive system in the studio. So I contact MPAC, and they are very generous and also inspiring to give me providing me a lot of information, and also to introduce me their facility. And this is my team, 5 person. So I visit them, and then they introduce me a lot of tools, like a technology they are working on now. And this is the art center focused on technology, science, and performing arts. Because it's quite difficult to find an art center, like let's say New Media Art Center, who also interested in dance. So they have a dance curator who is associated with dance and theater program. So we kind of talking how I can realize this project. And the reason why I chose them is because they have very advanced sound acoustic system. And this is wave field synthesis. And basically, it will create a virtual sound source and like in the space. And it's like, for example, it create a sound spot around the dancer. So only dancer can hear the, let's say, holographic sound. And outside of him, actually the rest of the people will only hear the rest of the, the very fragmented sound source. So we start to have 10 days of residency, and we work at the same time. We have a meeting with Diego every 3 days and discussing about, let's say, if we have a questions and in lights or whatever, we will ask Diego for his opinion, and he will feedback us on his scientific context. So this kind of back and forth, and then when we finish experiment, we will record it and show him. And so it's kind of back and forth. We try to gravitate each other on the, like to really enhance the context, both on science and arts. So it's not like our team is inventing something from, it's just like from our previous experience. So some gravity fact check for body. So actually down to what this physical body I'm working with. So I try to understand how, actually the question, what if I fall into the black hole, how my body will transform? And basically this is the questions. So there's a lot of information. Also, we try to take the real scientific facts, like the sound of gravitational wave, a lot of references also from sci-fi film, always work for artists, and see how they translate the body in the gravitational field. And a few notes, and okay, time to show some, I will immediately jump to our prototypes. So we build up 5 prototypes. This is the first one. So we work a lot with, let's say, points, and dancer as we call it gravitational center. So the light is following him, and the sound is following him as well. And there's a picture that we want to work with is that when dancer, let's say when a person is falling into a black hole, actually there's not such a thing as a falling or dropping. Instead, that it describes as because time moves so slow that this motion will be more closer to the floating or or freeze. So this the visual or the acoustic image we try to work with. So it's very different from, let's say, it's not that we try to follow our instinct of trying to create something to translate gravity, but it's really to find some pictures from the scientific point of view, what this could be. And second prototype, it's kind of taking, second prototype is working on the frequencies of color and frequencies of the sound. And that connects to where dancer move in space. And there's this picture, like, because I remember is one thing that when we hear that, of course, the dancer stop when dancer is falling, is stopped by the floor. But in the universe, actually there's no floor. So when the person is constant falling without nothing stopped him, actually he may not find in the end that he's falling. Instead, this floor becomes something that stop a person from, let's say, from dropping. So there's a different way to understand floor for me, like when I work with the dancer. And then this one is we try to create this picture. Okay, I think I can give, after this one, I can give the floor to Diego. And the third one was trying to work on the motion, if it's two gravitational center and how that will move in space with. So this is our tryout, just to build on this interactive system in the studio. And then we try to walk to be with those motions, who is turning constantly. And then working with the dancer with the idea of continuously falling or freezing or extreme slow motion. And so to see how that perceptional will change his way of understanding the space and time. Okay, so this is 3 prototypes we work together in MPAC, and very nice to share with you.
So I'm going to give the virtual microphone to Diego. Diego, we cannot do anything without people like Diego that is enthusiastic about the work we do and that trust us, and also people, I guess, Diego, you are in this category that have many questions. So you are also trying to reply to what is everything, how does it work? And we have a few years to do this. And by collaborating with artists, you had collaborated with a few of them, I have the intuition that you are trying to shake a bit your own knowledge. So as Tomer said before, and I think he explained better your work than I couldn't do it this way so gracefully from the scientific perspective, but I can say that you have been scientific partner to many artists. You work with Rudy Deselier and Vincent Hani. In fact, you collaborated with one of the works, Horizonte Resolus. Later, you were very active in the residency with Nikos Papadopoulos and with Harun Mirza, Jack Jelfs from London, Susan Trister, and you were about to leave to London, so there was this bridge in between in which you collaborated with Susan Trister while you were already there. And in 2016, you were active, and I'm very pleased to see that this is still continuing with the question of Wen-Chi about gravity in space. So I'm going to give you the microphone to perhaps ask you to explain what is the experience with this specific work with Wen-Chi and in general, your broad conception of art and science at CERN.
So, well, I think that one of my most inspirational books for what is the relation between art and science is this one from Andrei Tarkovsky, Sculpting in Time, where he precisely describes very well this connection between science and art, trying to explore all the unknowns of the universe from the inside or from the outside perspective. And to me, that was like an eye-opening. Well, it's not, the book is not only about this, but this particular chapter was really eye-opening. And I totally agree with both Monica and Wen-Chi that the CERN art and science is really one of the few places where, well, I have seen, because of course I have very little experience with the artistic world, but where I have seen that these two ways of exploring the universe are trying to put together into an interesting experiment, right? And what do I mean by this? So I'm gonna be very, very brief with my things. Sometimes when you think about art and science, you have this picture in mind. So here there is Christopher Nolan and talking to Kip Thorne, and they are being inspired by each other, but in the end they create something which is just scientific, in the sense that they try to represent in a movie some of the concepts of black holes, some of the concepts of, and this is okay, but to me, it's not deep enough, in the sense that there is something which is being missed by this. And this is not art and science at CERN. This is the other extreme. The other extreme is just nothing. Nothing from the point of view of an external person to the art world. Where you go to an art gallery, you see a science and art collaboration, and you say, this is not there is nothing about science here, right? So clearly the dialogue has not worked. So the artist in the other case had the scientist, if you want, imposed some vision. Here I think that the artists have imposed some vision. So to me, again, this is not what is more interesting. The most interesting thing when I interacted with the artist was meeting people like our amazing dancer Wen-Chi, or other ones with whom, without any clear target, we clearly communicated in a way to create something beautiful from the artistic point of view, but that didn't necessarily represent the scientific concepts. For this, we have other tools. This is my view. Okay, this is what I think is the most interesting connection, and I really have to congratulate Monica, because I think this is one of the to me the trademarks of art and science at CERN. Okay, this, of course, CERN is an ideal place because also scientists there are, let's say, more relaxed than in any other institutions. So they also have, the environment which is adequate for this dialogue. What happened in this particular case? So I think gravitation is one of the most amazing, and cosmology are one of the most amazing subjects of discussion between art and science, because of different aspects. One of them is that there are traditional concepts that people have in their minds that are completely modified by gravitation. And trying to take these concepts and apply them to an artistic work, is a kind of challenge, and at the same time, a very beautiful experience. And in this case, that was, sorry, from the previous, this is the same drawing that was shown before, where we have this idea of what does gravity do to your body? What does gravity do to your surroundings? And is there a way to express this through dance, right? Is there a way which is not just, you know, showing some very beautiful animations? Can a dancer transmit this idea? So from the scientific point of view, as was already mentioned briefly before, gravity slows down or accelerates, well, gravity changes the rate at which time flows. And this, if you think about an artistic performance, you really can imagine the amount of possibilities you have here. If you think about an orchestra, for instance, performing, and there is this concept of some gravitation going around, each performer is gonna have a different pace. So is there now the question was, is there a beautiful way to express this, just not a random, horrible, you know, meaningless work? So another thing that happens with gravity is that it changes the colors. So something which is seen by me as red is going to be seen as blue by someone who is in a different gravitational environment. So if you are closer to the sun or farther away from the sun, or to put in another word here, a black hole, which is an extreme object of gravity, the time passes differently, colors are modified, and also there is what is called tidal effect that stretch and impede the correct movement of dancers, performers, athletes, anyone who lives in a gravitational field, right? So these three concepts, which are, by the way, used in the GPS every day, all right, that are very important in current and modern observations. We have been just recently been able to see black holes, for instance, these extreme bodies of gravity. So this kind of concepts, which are again important in the scientific world, I think there was this huge opportunity to transmit them into the art, into a stage, imagining that there is some gravitation, which is non-trivial, flying around, all right, and then dancers interacting with it. You see, seeing that what's going on. I'm more stretched. So this is that was the challenge we started with, and we didn't have any at the beginning. I think we didn't have any particular outcome in mind. Yes, there was this. There was this. Yeah, my mouse disappeared. There was this drawing of like what happens if you go closer or farther away if the dancer starts oscillating. So we started to explore this idea in the blackboard. We had this other possibility of dancing stars and different dancers that would be even more challenging. Different dancers interacting with each other, or even with this massive object which changes gravitation around them, changes time. You see, it's kind of amazing. And well, I just wanted to say this I don't know, these words that there is still a lot to do, but I'm really impressed by what's going on so far. I really hope that this will eventually make it to a final project. And again, art and science at CERN is done in a way that to me is quite unique and is the most interesting one, in which artists, well, not all of them, right, and not all of the scientists want to talk to each other with an open mindset, but certainly it's happening, and this is one of the examples.
Thank you, Diego. Thank you. This is very encouraging because, as you know, sometimes within a huge community at CERN, you still feel lonely in your own research, and we are not lonely, but there is this, being along with your thinking and wondering if you're doing the right thing. And what we try to provide is, I wouldn't say we don't give a carte blanche to the artist, but it's true that the proposal is something that the proposal they sent for the residency, the proposal you sent, Wen-Chi, with before coming, was destroying a matter of 2 days when you arrived to the CERN. And now we are here talking about this experience 4 years later that has created a trilogy and has given you an input that perhaps at the time we were not expecting. So I think it's really interesting. And before going into questions, because I think we have, how long do we have for questions, Tomar? 5 minutes.
Right, the few minutes, and I actually got quite a few questions here.
Wow. Okay.
And maybe we'll have time for 1 or 2. But go ahead, go ahead.
So just a little remark, which I think is very funny, but for me, because Diego has Julio Cortázar behind him. And I don't know if that's a gag or it's just by chance that Julio Cortázar is there, but Julio Cortázar talk a lot about in his literature, about in his life, about the power of distraction. How by being distracted, profoundly distracted, many doors start to open, and you start to have, by chance, ideas that were not expected. So I think CERN could be somehow, we could use this analogy of Julio Cortázar's thinking for what we are trying to do. So let's give chance to the public to express comments or questions to Wen-Chi and Diego and myself. How do we do this?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna ask. I received here, so let me ask one question that was asked, which is whether you can tell us about your experience, Monica, as a moderator. Well, how do you view your job as a moderator between the artist and the scientist, and how do you measure success? And maybe this question can be elaborated on also to you, Diego and Wen-Chi. How do you understand or interact with the moderator during your process of collaboration?
I'm more a facilitator than a moderator. It's just taking care that things are, in their place when it's necessary. Sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't, but we are supported by a great community. So I think if I'm a moderator, it's more like curating in the sense of caring that the process is going somewhere and is flowing well, and providing resources and the environment to,
So if I correctly the question, I think the question meant to send, maybe you answered it, whether you intervene or talk with the artists and scientists while the process is ongoing, beyond just facilitating with the
Yeah, we do that. It's very important for us to understand that if I don't know, if I don't remember really what we did. I remember that winter snow, and you were Wen-Chi and Pei just going through the corridors and taking, just was a very gloomy winter. But yes, we need to know what is at CERN. We go to places that even scientists don't go. So scientists usually are in their department or in their experiment, but we take the artists to places that, to many places, to places that are sometimes, in the back door of a clique in the experiment, where these amazing guys creating these little pipes for the experiment, and is the workshop, the dirty places. And also we go to the detectors, to the big machines, to the places that everyone knows about. But we need to know that there is a cosmologist like Diego and Danny at that time, and there is people working right now with black holes, holographic principle that apparently there are many now, people looking at data. So all of this help us to somehow drive and take care of the interactions.
Okay, we are almost out of time, but let me just ask one question whether maybe you can answer shortly. There's a question about the influence of art at CERN on the science at CERN. Typically, or many times, it can be viewed as a one-way street rather than a two-way street. Is collaborations between artists and the theorists. And question I think is mostly for Diego. About your experience and how do you think it influenced your, or whether it is influenced your scientific work?
Yeah, that's a hard one, because as I said, I think sometimes precisely you get this question often from the artist who comes to talk to you, and there is this kind of intention that the artistic work influences you. I have seen this, and to me that's not so interesting, honestly, because, well, you are also a colleague, and you know that the kind of things that we do are highly technical. So in the sense that it's very hard to really make an influence on these technical skills. However, certainly there is another influence, more about how to express it, about the impact of what you do, or about the connection of what you do with the external with the external community, that certainly influences the way you do it and the way you feel about what you do and its impact. So I don't know if this really answers your question, but that's my feeling.
I think it does. I think it does answer.
We receive this question very often, Tomer, and there is no a single way to express it. But lately in our Instagram, we are collecting answers to that precise question. And some scientists, well, Tamara Vázquez-Schroeder says something like, the ability to step back and appreciate one's research helps to find new paths to interpret results. And this is precisely what working with artists does, to recall the scale of the research we are doing and reflect upon what we are ultimately trying to explain. So I think it's in the line of what Diego just said. So it's where is the impact of what you are doing, and how interactions can change you somehow.
Right. Okay, no, fantastic. We really have to move on to the next session. So I'd like to thank you all again for being with us and for sharing your experience and amazing work. And
thanks a lot.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank